There was a time before cable, when the local anchorman reigned supreme, when people believed everything they heard on TV. This was an age when only men were allowed to read the news. One anchorman was more man than the rest.
Bruce Hall has been providing us with updates.
Bruce Hall is braving the strong winds and rains.
Bruce Hall reports.
Bruce Hall did not start out with Walter Cronkite tossing to his packages. Like most young reporters, he worked his way up through the one-light towns and City Hall beats.
And to watch. The mood is tense. I have been on some serious reports, but nothing quite like this.
But after stops in Joplin, Cape Girardeau, and Jacksonville, Bruce earned a correspondence job with the Tiffany Network, CBS. He was based in Atlanta, but always on the go.
Not during sweeps week!
The story of a baby trapped in a well captivated the nation.
And a few moments ago, they sent in a person who has no collarbone, hoping that he will be able to slither through those small holes and get closer to Jessica.
Bruce covered the fall of an evangelist.
It raises a question as to whether PTL will be able to survive.
And the rise of a peanut farmer from Georgia.
I, Jimmy Carter, do solemnly swear.
In between, there were stories of people away from the spotlight.
How do you feel about getting some help for it?
Well, I hope a whole lot of people help me.
CBS News was a big deal back in the 60s and the 70s and most of the 80s, in part, as always, in the CBS tradition at least, built on the backs of its stable of correspondents.
First with legendary newsman Walter Cronkite, and later with Dan Rather. The CBS Evening News was a showcase for Bruce's work, and no matter the story, Bruce covered it in a manner that was admired across the board.
And they plan to take over the country by the first of the year. Bruce Hall, CBS News, Esteli, Nicaragua.
Bruce was the one who could get along with everybody and was respected by every one of the billions of factions and cults within CBS News.
What may be the hallmark of Bruce's career came one cold January morning in 1986.
Oh my God. We've had a terrible thing happen. The Space Shuttle Challenger exploded into a gigantic fireball a minute and 12 seconds after liftoff this morning.
The Challenger was a huge story for him, and he gave it everything that he had.
NASA says that rescue crews are now arriving in the impact area. It says that the debris just stopped falling, and they have found nothing so far.
Clearly, his 10 or so hours on air, the day of the Challenger accident, was a daunting task. But of course, then he stayed with that story for the months to come as that whole investigation unfolded. They were down there.
For the men and women workers here at the Kennedy Space Center and at other NASA centers, this was the day they waited for, the day they could soar again, to prove the can-do space agency still could. Our CBS News veteran space program correspondent Bruce Hall is here now after spending the long, anxious night with them and on into daylight and the light. Bruce?
Dan, with all the delays, all the agony, the launch wound up at 11:37, just 1 minute earlier than that tragic day 32 months ago when Challenger lifted off.
Dan Rather himself told me once when your name came up that Bruce Hall was a damn fine correspondent, and I think you should know that.
Bruce dedicated himself to the nuances of NASA, but he may be best known for his encounters with the blunt strength of nature.
But the main concern here is the rain and the flooding.
He covered dozens of hurricanes over a 20-year stretch for CBS News before fate blew him in a different direction.
Good morning, I'm Bruce Hall.
Bruce began his NBC days as an anchor, but quickly found himself in familiar territory.
Some people are drenched, freezing to death on a stupid boat with a stupid hat, while others are in a comfy news studio, sucking up all the glory.
The single most impressive piece of tape that I've ever seen in this building came from Bruce when Hurricane Andrew came ashore in South Florida back in the early 90s.
And the wind is picking up, so it is definitely, although the eye is not here yet, the eye is very close, and you can feel conditions getting worse.
And there was Bruce, blowing like a kite in the wind, hanging onto a human chain that I think involved Rob Llewellyn and a couple of techs in a building.
It's hard because in order to stand here, I've got a gentleman holding me. We have a person holding the cameraman and we're leaning up against the building. That is the only way that you can do it.
And it almost made it worse because you got these people just holding you down, so it's just like the wind blow you straight back.
And there he was talking to Sarah James in the middle of this hurricane with monstrous winds that went on to do tremendous damage.
We see damage in buildings. A fence about 5 feet from us just blew away in the last 2 minutes. A satellite dish disappeared.
There was a satellite dish over near us, and the dish just crumpled up like a flower. It just folded up. And I looked at Bruce, and he's not scared, you know, and I'm so eager to please Bruce and be a photographer and get it all done that Bruce is not scared, so I'm not scared. But when I see the satellite dish just fold up, I'm like, well, maybe we should go inside now.
Bruce did it all in the early days of NBC NewsChannel, but as the organization grew, Bruce started spending more time behind the camera than in front of it.
Well, I think just about every one of us who's worked in this business in front of a camera at one time or another has had one story or one something that they just couldn't get through without laughing. And I remember one night in particular with Bruce on Nightside in pre-pro, there was a story about a dog with two noses.
Oh, you're going to love this story. Even ordinary dogs are known to have an incredible sense of smell.
That's right, but wait till you hear about the ones with two noses.
Oh, Tom, you're going to love this one.
Yeah, I can hardly wait, Bruce. What it's about?
Even ordinary dogs are known to have an incredible sense of smell.
I told you not to look at me, Bruce. Hey, I got to go get a drink of water.